Welcome to A Heart for Home Education. My name is America, mother to three, home educating in a Charlotte Mason and classical way. Today I'm going to be talking through how I am planning our year with the children's tradition. So today I just want to share what I am pulling together for our year for the children's tradition. This video is probably going to just be kind of a chatty update on how I am planning to use the children's tradition for my kids individually and kind of as a group, what we will be doing as a group, what years I'm placing them in, how I'm deciding what books to use, and things like that. It's just going to be an informal update on where I'm at with my planning for next year. So I purchased the Children's Tradition curriculum straight from the website, and then you will get a special link to order this printing from Humble Hearts Press. And I love Humble Hearts Press tape bound binding. I used it for my logbook last year. And so this one is the laminated cover that I had them do last year, and this is the logbook that I purchased from Autumn Kern with my Common House membership. So if you're interested in the logbook she has to offer, you can join her mighty network. But overall, I can testify to the durability and just like the beauty of this tape bound binding from Humble Hearts Press. And if you have any other curriculum that you would like printed, then that is a place that I would recommend going to. I just love how flat they lay. They can open wide open like this. The paper is really thick and quality, so I highly recommend. So anyways, what I have done to prepare for our year with the children's tradition is first to read the section that Amanda has in the first part of the curriculum, which is the first 125 pages. It is a treasure trove and really a culmination on Charlotte Mason and the poetic mode of knowledge and learning. So I would highly recommend reading this part first, because then you will understand better how to use the resources that she talks about in the lesson plans. So part 3 goes through the lesson plans and what the different elements are in the lesson plans. So first up, I really just perused the years that I knew my kids might be in for the coming year. So my oldest is going into 4th grade. Year 4, it will be his 5th year of school. I don't know. So I knew he would be about year 4. And then my younger two, I have one going into his first formal year of schooling. And so I was thinking would be year 1. And then my daughter is year 3. So I have year 4, year 3, and year 1. But I knew that I would be combining some of the things. So first up, she talks about the benediction table, which is kind of like your morning basket, but it is a little bit more purposeful and a little more spiritual than your typical morning basket, I think. And she highly recommends you combine for a lot of the benediction table. So I kind of perused these years 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I went through what have we read, what have we not read, where would be a good place to put my children. And what I landed on is this. My 9-year-old son, who will turn 10 at the beginning of school, he will be in year 4. And he will do most of the readings from year 4. I'll talk about that in a minute, but he is solidly in year 4. And then my daughter, who is 7, but will be 8 at the beginning of the school year, she is kind of the chameleon. Some of the things she's going to jump up to year 4 and do with her older brother, and some of the things she's going to go back to year 1 and do with her younger brother. And then my year 1 is going to solidly be in year 1. It's just kind of my middle daughter going up for some of the readings and going down for some of the other readings. But really, the years are just kind of arbitrary. The books are good. She will still be challenged. Really, she's going back and doing these because I did most of these resources when my oldest son, like his first year of school. So she kind of missed out on those. And then because I was doing everything as a group, she kind of missed out on those early resources. So we're going to go back and do those with her and her younger brother. And then once I kind of decided that, I was able to look at the year 4 purchase list and timetabling suggestions. So you can see here that she has a section for the benediction table, which includes prayer, psalms, lives of the saints and biographies, spiritual formation, poetry, and fables. And so all of these I am going to be doing as a family. And I just need to kind of pick and choose, am I going to be doing the year 4 listed resource, or am I going to be doing the year 1 or 2 listed resource? And so I went ahead and did that. And then I went through the rest of the year 4 schedule to see what else overlaps with the year 1 or year 2 schedule. Things like drawing and Latin, Shakespeare, art, composer, a lot of these things overlap with the year 1 timetable. So I'm trying to combine as much as I can as a family. So that was kind of the first phase and stage of the planning, was like, what can we do as a family? What can we combine? What can we do during our benediction table? Because our morning time usually lasts a solid hour, sometimes a little more. So I know we can fit a lot into that morning time. And then kind of choosing, do I want to use the year 4 selection for this? Do I want to use the year 1 or 2 selection? I mean, a lot of them are as written the same resource, but some of them are different. Like the poet that we would focus on year 4 is different than the poet for year 1. So just seeing where I can combine, where I need to pick between the years, and then just choosing which resource we would rather use. And a lot of that is just like, we've already read this one resource, or this is something that I've really wanted to get to, so I want to be sure to use this one. So that's how I've made a lot of those decisions. Because I know all the resources are good, I just kind of have to do some digging to see what would be the best fit for us in this season. Since I have all of the group resources kind of picked out, then I went through year 4 individually to see what things we want to do, what things we might have already read or done, and then where I might want to swap out or just customize it for my student. So for year 4, this is my son's first year starting composition. So he will have 20 minutes 2 times a week of copy work, 20 minutes 1 time a week for dictation, and 20 minutes 1 time per week for written narration. So this is a big thing that we're going to be focusing on this year. It's going to be brand new for him, and I know he will need a lot of time with me and a lot of instruction at the beginning for how to do these things. I mean, he's done copy work and dictation for years, but the written narration part is mostly what I'm talking about. That's brand new for us. So first, to look at were the literary novels, which we are supposed to read 30 minutes 4 times a week. And she has them broken down by terms. And so I went through all of those. We are actually reading one of them now this summer because I want to fit in one of the Ambleside online picks to our term for our literary novels. So if you watched some of my previous videos, then you may have seen that I was very interested in using Ambleside Online. And over the course of picking curriculum, really, if I had to pick year by year, like I was sold all in on Ambleside Online year 4. So I knew going into this that I would probably be pulling some picks from AO just because I really fell in love with those resources. Nothing at all against anything in the children's tradition. It's just I had looked into Ambleside Online so much that I really became familiar and was excited about using some of those resources. So I am pulling some AO into my year 4, and I will talk more about specifically what those are in my upcoming videos where I share all of the specific resources for my year 4, my year 3, and my year 1 kids. After literary novels, then we moved on to adventure stories, and I read through these ones. They all looked great. We have not read any of these, and so my plan was to keep those as is. Shakespeare, we are doing that as a family. And then historical fiction. This was really where I've made a lot of the Ambleside Online switches. Nothing against what has been picked out in the children's tradition, but I just really preferred the AO history. And so I am mostly doing AO year 4 picks for history for my son. And so, like I said, I will talk about that more in another video where I kind of lay out exactly what we are doing. And then another new thing is that my year 4 will be doing Plutarch's Lives. And so he needs a good chunk of time with me to do that each week. And then really the rest of the things are things that he can do with his siblings. So I feel like the year 4 was really straightforward because most of these resources we have not done yet. The only resources that I was changing were things that just suited my preference a little bit better. And so that was easy. And so after going over all of the year 4 resources, I moved on to working on my son's timetable. I will share kind of an in-depth look at their timetables after I share all of the resources I'm using. Basically, I needed this step to make sure that everything would fit and to see what he would need me for and what things I want to usher him into independence with. And so I realized that I was going to need him to have at least one audiobook every morning, and then he would need at least 1 hour with me each morning, and then he would also need an hour of together time at the end of our school day for literature, fairy tale, Latin, brush drawing, artist, composer, stargazing, Shakespeare, fairy tales, things like that. Things that we can do together that did not fit in our benediction table. And then he's also going to start his day off with about an hour and a half of independent studies. That's things like piano, math, copywork, spelling, working on his written narration, editing his written narration, and then those audiobooks that I have selected. So once I saw that it all fit, and like I said, I will share this in a future video, once it's a little more established, then I felt like I was clear to start working on the year 1 and year 2 plans. So flipping back to year 1 and year 2. For year 2, this is where I found most of the overlaps for things that we have already read. But there were a couple of things on here that we haven't read. And so I just kind of made a note of those, and I kind of brought that list with me in my mind to the year 1 purchase and timetable list. And then flipping to year 1, the benediction table, that's all family stuff. And then about half of the rest of it is family stuff, such as drawing, Latin, fairy tales, myths and legends, Shakespeare, art, music, nature study. I would say about half of the purchase and timetable list from year 1 is stuff that I already had covered in our benediction table or in our family together time studies. So really for my 5 turning 6-year-old, he will have reading lessons, composition, fairy tales, myths and legends, literary novel, historical fiction, natural history, geography, and arithmetic. And much of that he will be doing with his older sister. For the literary novels, we have read about half of them. So I'm taking the literary novels from year 1 and year 2 because we've read about half of both of those years. So I'm kind of using the ones we haven't read recently for our literary picks for my younger kids. However, my oldest has not read any of the Dr. Dolittle books. So I'm going to make that a lunchtime read where we're all together, and that's what we will read together during lunch so that everyone is getting to experience that story. And then for the historical fiction, I'm keeping that totally as is. We have read all of these except for Wings for Pear. I've never heard of that one, but we've read all of these. We have all of these, but I read them when my oldest was a year 1. So it's time to read these again. And that's kind of where, I read these when my oldest was a year 1. So my middle daughter didn't really get to experience them in formal lessons. So we are reading them again. This is going to be a big adjustment for us, for my oldest to be hearing me read stories, but not able to listen to them like he wants to. I know it's going to be really hard and it makes me sad, but this is just kind of the next phase of his education, kind of working a little bit more independently, and he can read these in his free time again if he would like to. And then for the natural history, she has either the Burgess Animal book or the Burgess Seashore book, and I think year 3 is the Burgess Bird book. So actually, I just ended up going with the Burgess Bird book. That's what I picked. That's what we wanted to do this year. So that's what we will be swapping out for natural history, and my 2 youngest will be doing that. And if I can work it, I'll have my oldest fit it in as well. And then everything else, I am combining my 2 youngest. So everything that my 2 youngest are going to be sharing in with just each other and not their older brother is myths and legends, literary novels, historical fiction, natural history, and geography. And then each of my 2 youngest will each have their own reading lesson and arithmetic lessons, and that kind of rounds out their individual time with me. And so because we are kind of doing a hybrid year 1, year 2 mix, I am going to be having my oldest son listen into the year 2 novel picks. And so then it was time to start shaping my benediction table It was taking a lot of shape just based on what I was able to combine for the kids. And so each day, the benediction table will have prayer, singing of psalms, studying the life of a saint or a Christian biography, spiritual formation, poetry, and a fable. And then I will also be adding in things like recitation, some of the folk songs from AO, and foreign language. So after that, Amanda provides this really handy purchase list and timetabling resource where you can fill in which supplies you need for each stream of knowledge that you are studying. And so this is my year 4 students, and I just kind of mark things with an MB for like morning basket. These are for the whole family. And then I have down here his own literary plans and things like that, and if I've purchased the resource. I have about 90% of my resources purchased, and they're all over here. They've all arrived, and so the other ones, I'm just waiting on them to come in the mail. Now that I have all of the resources picked out and purchased, it's time to pre-read some of the ones, especially for my oldest, that he will be listening to independently. That is my top priority. Also doing some pre-reading for some of the things that I will be reading with him. For my year 1 students, I will be right there reading with them, reading to them. And a lot of these I have already read. So I am more focused on pre-reading for my year 4 student. So Amanda includes actual week breakdowns of what chapters to read, what pages to read. And so this is going to be incredibly helpful for me. And I really just need to work on combining the Ambleside online timetable with this timetable for my year 4 students, so I can kind of seamlessly go between those two schedules. And then really just pre-reading. And so I'm going to be pre-reading a lot of my year 4 students' picks, especially the ones that he will be listening to on audio. For my year 1s, I'm not as concerned because I will be right there with them, reading to them, and I've read a lot of these resources already. So really, yeah, the next steps are pre-reading and making sure these weekly schedules are mapped out, and somehow I want to just print the schedules by themselves so I don't have to constantly refer to this book. And so I do love that I have the PDF version of the children's tradition so that I can print just individual pages as needed. Well, that's all I have for you for today's video. I hope you enjoyed getting a look inside what I am doing and planning and thinking about for using the children's tradition for next year. I hope that you found it useful in some way, helpful in some way, and if not, then I hope you enjoyed some camaraderie over the planning that we must do this summer as homeschooling moms. Please let me know how your planning is going down in the comments below. What are some of the things you are doing, some of the things you are thinking about, whatever curriculum you are using. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.